Inside our hotel suite in Amsterdam, there was a Christmas tree. I could not remember if I'd ever had one. I did always find the custom strange, somehow both too modern but also too pagan for my taste, but I was in a different mindset these days, so I gave in and marveled at it, at the red and pearl white ornaments, at the multicolored lights. On top was not a star but a little crown, which was the emblem of the hotel. Harry had spoiled us, at least for these first few days. When looking at the tree too much made me a little wobbly, outside our second-story room looked out on the most beautiful canal with riverboats, and the riverboats had lights too, and some of them Christmas trees as well. Bicycles were everywhere, of course. Occasionally one with spokes illuminated would pass by, and I felt like I would fall into a trance. It had just stopped snowing the night that we'd arrived, and although it was melting a little, it was crisp and powdery and beautiful. Mesmerizing is the word I'm looking for. We were tired due to traveling, and so we spent most of our time inside that first day, but we had something to do in the evening, it would seem. "Are your hands shaking?" I couldn't help asking Harry.
Yes, funny that. Haven't done that in a while. Don't know what to make of it.
Harry wasn't talkative. He took several trips down to the lobby to use the complimentary computers and have some tea at the bar. Bunny liked the tree too. When we were alone, I thought about what I might like to say to my sister, but she didn't seem to want to hear it. It wasn't like I could read her mind or me hers, but something like we used to have as children had returned, an understanding of what the other was feeling. We spent a lot of time looking out the window at all the marvelous things, and we were at peace, almost like we had returned to a time before it all. The music show was in a massive underground building. It went down 3 floors into what may have been previously a parking garage for a neighboring office building. We lost each other several times down a dark hallway amidst the crowd of people, mostly youths and with chaotic energy, smelling of alcohol and tobacco. Everyone's bodies were pressed up against each other in a very uncomfortable way, except with Harry, who people seemed to give space to, so I guess it was just me. Perhaps I should have aged myself. Both men and women gave me a lot of flirtatious energy. The music was shaking the walls, shaking my head. But thankfully, when we got inside, the high ceiling allowed us to breathe a little, for the sound to dissipate into somewhere else but the very marrow of our bones. It was time to see if Harry's lead was right. It was time to see dragon, spelled D-R-G-N, but I assume pronounced like a dragon. On stage was a woman DJing, if that is the proper way to say it. She waved to conclude her time and the crowd cheered. We climbed some stairs to a balcony where we could see better. A man sidled next to me. The music seemed to be announcing something. The lights dimmed. The crowd hummed with excitement. The man said something to me, but I could not understand. "What?" I asked him to repeat.
I said I'm the lighting designer technically. This guy does his own lights somehow. I'm supposed to be in the booth up there normally, but this guy's got some kind of top secret setup. They pay me to stay out during the show. You see that guy up there guarding the door? Sweet shit, man. Anyway, he's great though. Hope you enjoy. It's gonna get loud.
I looked up over some stairs to a booth far in the corner. A man looking like a bulldog had his arms crossed before the door. He seemed to be looking right at me. I wanted to tell Harry about it, but then the crowd erupted. Simon came onto the stage, bare-chested, wearing one suspender and black dungarees that were covered with the same paint effects he had done on his pants from before. His body also seemed to be covered with streaks of paint or blood, I could not tell. It went dark. Someone screamed, with joy, hopefully. Then, the music, the lights. I do not know if I've ever been to a show quite like this, but something was different, I'm sure. The lights encircling us, almost twisting, and behind Simon, more lights seemed to pulse with the music and almost hover, almost stretch out into the crowd as the music built to a crescendo. Harry and I looked at each other, the neon lights reflecting in our eyes. Only these lights weren't neon, I didn't think. Simon's unmistakable powers seemed to make them that way. Perhaps it was because of our previous experience in a building of this size, but I felt myself growing more worried as the music kept building in intensity. And yet nothing bad was happening. All around us it felt like chaos, but it was joyful chaos. Simon bounced up and down as the crowd built in intensity, dancing, so to speak, below in the throng. After what may have been an hour but felt like 2, Harry indicated to me that we should push across the room to a side exit. The bulldog man was there. He let in a few young women and then turned away several men before we got to him. He held up his hand to indicate wristband. Harry whispered into the man's ear. The man got out his phone and texted and then reluctantly let us inside, away from the madness at last. We climbed several floors of this concrete stairwell before arriving above ground at a long room like a royal hall overlooking one of the main downtown streets. It was filled with couches and tables, and a party was in full effect, although thankfully there was no music here and very little to no lighting. We were mostly illuminated from the lights from the street below. A fog outside was giving everything a hazy, dreamlike atmosphere. Young people, also bare-chested, wore Christmas lights around their necks. When they looked at me, their eyes again were flirtatious, and when they looked at Harry, they turned fearful. I suppose I was glad Harry was there. The whole scene made me feel overstimulated, and not in a good way. I couldn't quite think straight. Hopefully Harry would do the talking. Simon was sandwiched at a booth and still glistening a bit from the show. On either side of him were 2 young women with spiky short white hair, not unlike Simon now, who had distinctly dyed his hair a pure white, although it had streaks of pink on one side. The young women wore identical black turtlenecks and, to my surprise, also seemed to be identical twins. They were pretty in an elf-like sort of way, but also a bit off-putting, as they glared at us in what looked like a disgusted way as we approached. On one side of them was a man, leather jacket, scruffy and maybe a little older than them, with what looked like pills, a wallet, and old pocket watch spread on the table. On the other, a small man, much older, with glasses, gentlemanly-like and out of place in a tweed jacket. He stood up and left as we approached, but not before giving us a smile and saying something which I could not hear. The room might as well have all grown dark and the spotlight been turned only on Harry and Simon. I could not see Harry's expression, but I knew that glare. In Simon, what was before a confident, cocksure demeanor quickly turned into that of a boy about to be scolded. He attempted to return his vampire's gaze to Harry, but was quickly disarmed and looked down. He whispered something in one of the girl's ears, and she shifted out the booth. She stood by me and grabbed my wrist and whispered something in my ear that again I was not sure if it was Dutch, which I do not speak, or if I was just overstimulated and could not hear. Harry followed Simon through a back door hidden in the wall, and they were gone. With Simon gone, some music was put on, very slow and hypnotic, and the young lady took me by the hand and somehow would not take no for an answer. She danced very close to me. I tried to imitate her movements. Why? Perhaps I was too embarrassed to say no. Then, to my horror, the room doubled in size. More people were rushing in, and the party seemed to be amplifying in size with the music, bodies all around. Behind me, a much larger woman pressed against me, which pressed me closer to the twin. Oh no. She kissed me, and I kissed her back, and she bit my tongue until I could feel it bleeding. What was going on? I grabbed my mouth and looked at her, and she looked aghast and apologetic. At least it was an accident, and this was not a trap. I took myself away and into the far corner where there was a curtain I could hide behind. I wiped my hand with my blood. It was not much, still not very sanitary. The young lady had not followed me, fortunately. She tasted of cigarettes and something like raspberries, but perhaps that was just the way my blood tasted now. I looked down at the streets, and across I could see one of the canals, serene and peaceful, and I envied Bunny. What good had it been for me to come with Harry, except he was nervous about it all. I was providing him emotional support. That was what friends do, I suppose. I could barely see the entrance Harry and Simon gone into, but was pretty sure they'd find me once they were done. What was happening in there? We hadn't even spoken of what he would do or say. The only thing I knew is that Harry and Simon cared for each other somehow, but the betrayal had been a mighty one. I do not think I could bring myself to confront someone about something like that, even if I did care for them, but perhaps that was my problem, but no. I was done running away. Perhaps I was not brave, but I was not neither a coward. I can stand my ground, I thought. The young lady found me, and before she could come towards me, I stood and walked by her. I took her arm a little strong in my hand and whispered in her ear, "Thanks for the dance. I will be going soon, but see you later perhaps." I kissed her on her cheek, a kind of apology. If she only knew what she was lusting after, she would not be so eager. At least this time my fangs had stayed in. I was already outside when I realized that perhaps I had not done what I said I'd do, being there for Harry, but perhaps it was enough. I took the long way home to shake off all the energy of the night. I looked at the color of the water in the canals, but unfortunately it was peppered with lights of the colors of Christmas. Still, sometimes it is beautiful to not know what is coming next. I will tell you how it goes.